Hi, welcome to my channel, Organized with Joy. Today I wanted to talk about something that is a little bit hard for me to talk about, but I think it's an important topic with organization and keeping your home tidy, and that is mental health, and in particular anxiety. I'm anxious right now because I have written 0 notes down. I decided maybe it would be better if I just spoke what was on my mind instead of trying to come up with some sort of written script about my experience with anxiety and clutter. So I have had what I think is anxiety pretty much my entire life, or at least as long as I can remember. And I remember probably when I was in upper high school, going into college, I started learning that if I could control my environment, if I could keep my things in order, if I could keep them clean and neat and tidy, that my anxiety levels would go down. And over time, as I grew up and grew older, more responsibilities and more things were piling on top of me, and it got harder and harder to manage those things. I got married fairly young. I was 21 when I got married, so it started with having to keep not only my things neat and clean and organized, but also my husband's things. And then shortly thereafter, we started our family, and then that added more things with baby things. And as our family continued to grow, it was even more things. And so in a way, it was nice that it was slow and over time that we accumulated these things. But on the other hand, it was like I didn't even notice how much we were accumulating. And probably by the time my youngest was a toddler, I started feeling very, very overwhelmed. And at that time, we lived in a 3,600 square foot home. It was 5 bedrooms, 3 full bathrooms. And so it was just a lot to take care of. And it was when we were about ready to move out of that home that I had my first panic attack. And it was just a normal day. There was nothing in particular going on. It was during the time when we were trying to sell our home. So I guess it was a stressful time. It was during the summer, and so all 3 of my kids were home from school, and I had to keep our house neat for unexpected showings. But I was just cleaning. It was a normal afternoon. I didn't even have anybody coming to look at the house or anything. I was just cleaning the bathrooms, and all of a sudden I couldn't breathe and I felt dizzy. And later on, I learned that what I was experiencing was a panic attack. I ended up going to see my general practitioner ultimately, and he diagnosed me with generalized anxiety disorder. So my story really is kind of a longer story with regards to why I was experiencing anxiety. I truly believe that your external environment can contribute to anxiety or depression. Particularly if you're living in a chaotic situation, either physically chaotic or emotionally. I was diagnosed with the generalized anxiety disorder, and then for a couple of years was on medication for that, and also on medication for some digestive issues that were kind of coinciding with the anxiety. And it was helping some, but it wasn't like totally getting rid of my anxiety. And so this is a little bit of a side story, but I ended up seeing a holistic doctor and changing my diet and taking supplements to balance out some chemical and vitamin imbalances that I had in my body. Now, as I reflect back on that time in my life, I know some of it was circumstantial as far as trying to sell a home and hoping that everything would line up, like we could purchase the home we were moving into and we wouldn't have a lot of overlap with 2 mortgages. So there was a lot of stress around that time, and my youngest was about ready to enter kindergarten, which would have been a new phase for us. But as I reflect back and look back at that time in our lives, I think I really believe that some of it had to do with the amount of stuff that I had to manage and deal with. It was probably about 5 or 6 years ago that I had learned about minimalism, and I became really interested in the idea of minimalism or becoming minimalist. But it's definitely hard after your kids are older and they're used to a certain way of life, and you've been married for many years and you just get used to things the way they were. So it's very difficult to just immediately switch to a different lifestyle. And what I have done over the past 5 or 6 years is just work on my own things and my own spaces, and finding ways to live with less in my spaces, in hopes that that might be an example to my husband and my children. It's hard too because 2 of my kids, I don't want to call them hoarders, they're more collectors. So they enjoy having things, and my husband is kind of the same way. I think he would be okay with minimalism, but I think it's hard for him to let go of the things we've already purchased because he might feel like it's wasteful, or like we could potentially use those items, like we've already spent money on it, we could potentially use those items in the future. So with my family members, I have tried to make sure I have boundaries and make sure that I allow them to keep their own spaces the way they would like. It's not always easy, particularly since obviously my husband and I share a bedroom. I kind of joke with him that his side of the bed I just ignore. When we first moved into this house that we're in now, which was a little over 10 years ago, we pretty much had to get rid of things because we had lived in a home that was 3,600 square feet, and this home is 2,600 square feet. So there was just a natural getting rid of things, like a process of that. But it wasn't until about 5 years after that that I really started wanting to evaluate more closely what we kept in our home. And especially because as a stay-at-home mom, I was the one that was taking care of everything related to the home. Part of me wishes that I could just go back in time and learn about minimalism earlier so that it was easier to incorporate it into our lives before our children got too old to get used to the way life had been. But on the other hand, I realize that everybody has their own journey, not just with minimalism, but anything in life. We all are just learning as we go, and we, make the changes we need to make when we learn about what changes we need to make. And that's all we can do. That's the best we can do. I don't know for sure that had I learned about minimalism earlier and changed our lifestyle and got my husband and kids on board with it, if it would have really made all of my anxiety go away. I think it was just a contributing factor. I did learn later, after seeing several different doctors, that there were other physical things going on inside of my body that was contributing to the anxiety, but just from everything I've learned about having less and keeping your things organized and having a place for things and keeping your external environment less chaotic, it definitely has helped with my anxiety levels. I know that this is a really touchy subject for some people, but I would love for you to share in the comments your experience with this. Do you have anxiety, or is your anxiety exasperated by having external chaos or having stuff to have to manage all the time? I would love to hear from you guys and share your experiences. Thank you for taking the time to watch my video today. I appreciate it. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to my channel, I would love for you to consider subscribing. Thanks. Have a great day. Bye. See you next time. And so